Sit down if you want to.
Right in the middle of what's going on.
I'm in the middle of an interrogation.
Take a seat, young Skywalker.
The middle children of history, man.
Middle of the day, Alfred?
Please, take a seat there.
Right now, I'm in the middle of nowhere.
Stop the middle, it's a base hit!
Meeting in the middle.
Slide.
They fought for the freedom of middle.
The middle of a
The middle of a
In the middle of a war! This is freaking ridiculous!
Why don't we have a seat and talk it over?
No! Not the middle seat!
Welcome back to the Middle Seats Podcast, the best seat in the house for all things movies and entertainment. I'm Andrew Auger. As per usual, I am joined by Nate Lungarini and Jake Hensler. You have entered into the review of Knives Out, Rian Johnson's new whodunit murder mystery thriller / comedy. We'll discuss this film that a lot of you have seen, then we'll rate it on the seat scale, then go into our spoiler section, which will be pretty extended for this one. Not going to be a lot of beating around the bush this time around. If you want to skip to those parts of the review, look in the time codes below. If you want to hear a different part of the podcast, this is just a part of a whole, look on our YouTube channel and you'll be able to see that video as well. Now here's a snippet of the trailer for Knives Out.
The night of his demise, the family had gathered to celebrate your father's 85th birthday.
Mr. Blanc, I just buried my father who committed suicide. Why are you here?
I suspect foul play. That's some heavy-duty conjecture.
Funny, Ransom, you skipped the funeral, but you're early for the will reading.
The family is truly desperate. When people get desperate, the knives come out.
I keep waiting for the big reveal.
All of them lied to me.
Oh my God.
Tell me what happened to my grandfather.
That was part of the pretty cryptic trailer for Knives Out, Rian Johnson's new whodunit murder mystery thriller. We've got an all-star cast in this one to talk about. Johnson, of course, coming off the success, box office-wise. I will not start arguments again about Star Wars The Last Jedi. But box office-wise, obviously, it was a huge hit, and he got other people attracted to his projects. Among the people in this film, Daniel Craig, Chris Evans, Ana de Armas, Jamie Lee Curtis, Michael Shannon, Don Johnson, Toni Collette, Lakeith Stanfield, Christopher Plummer, and then more and more and more and more. The basic of the plot is that Harlem Thrombey, which is Christopher Plummer's character, he's a very popular murder mystery novelist, one of the most popular of all time. He's basically the Stephen King / James Patterson of this universe. He dies unexpectedly after a birthday party for him that all of his family attended. Benoit Blanc, which is Craig's character, very cleverly called CSI KFC in the film because he has this foghorn leghorn accent through the whole thing. He's in there to investigate the murder. He was tipped off to it. Or is it a murder in the first place? That's what the central mystery is. And there are a bunch of different suspects. And obviously, we go the Agatha Christie / Clue route where we try to solve before the detectives can even get to it. So guys, obviously, this is a very big throwback, but there's also a lot of modern elements to it too. It's a murder mystery like the Hardy Boys novels that you might have read growing up, but it's also got a 21st century kick to it, and I think that's very interesting. But we'll get into that a little bit later. It was one of the most anticipated movies of the year for me. Jake Hensler, what did you think of Knives Out?
Knives Out was also one of those movies that I was super, super excited for. Like you, I love The Last Jedi, which is, Rian Johnson's movie. I love this cast. So many big names from good projects. So I was really, really excited to see it. I thought it was good. I thought it was very good. I didn't quite like it as much as I thought I would, although I've heard that could change on a second viewing. But for right now, I thought it was really well done. Clearly very well thought out. A lot of detail, a lot of thought put into this movie. Obviously, there's twists. It's a murder mystery movie, but there's almost a twist on the structure and the genre that obviously we'll get to in spoilers that I was not expecting. So there's only so much I can say without spoiling it, because there's like spoilers 20 minutes in. But yeah, other than that, I liked it. I would recommend it to a lot of people. I think all the acting was good, writing was good, and I'm excited to get going to just discuss it, truthfully.
Well said. Nate Lungarini, you have a very complicated history with Rian Johnson. What do we think of this?
Well, I think it confirms that I need a good script to like a movie, and this movie has it in spades. I loved it. I really, really did. Knives Out was great. So, Rian Johnson, it's not a grudge against the director that I didn't like The Last Jedi. I just didn't like The Last Jedi. This was everything that I wanted Bad Times at the El Royale to be. It was twisty, but it had some humor to it. There was a whole lot of subversion of the entire whodunit genre, and a lot of enthralling, awesome characters that each one you're trying to dissect, like, who the heck are you and what is your motive? And they do a lot of really interesting things with it. I think it's a great character piece, a great whodunit. Really fun time at the movies. I had a blast with it.
Very interesting. So I was lucky enough to see this early, and like I said, I was hella hyped for it. I was very, very excited for it.
Yeah, keep flexing.
As I said it, it sounded like a flex, and I really didn't mean for it to be a flex.
I couldn't help it.
But I think I needed to rack something out of my brain. I've seen the film twice now, and I have to say it exponentially got better the second time. I really liked it the first time. Flat out loved it the second time I saw it. It's a twist on the twist-based genre. Like, we spend so much time watching murder mysteries, and I think Bad Times at the El Royale is a really good example, Nate, of one of those, where it's very much character-driven and quirky character-driven, and you're just trying to piece together who is doing what and what their motives are, and who is the person who did it. That's why it's called whodunit. But really, this movie, and I can't take credit for this, but I love it, so I've just been reusing it over and over again. This is not a whodunit. This is a why done it. It's less about the revelation of the mystery and more about how the people in the film inform the central mystery in the first place. It is very, very you to the 1%, which is always fun. I have a good time with that. But it is just it's so biting. It's ruthless. It's just so whip smart and clever. It's subversive, but it's also really good at the genre as well. So it plays both cards really well. And the first time I saw it, I had to kind of get over the initial shock of, oh, this is not doing anything near what I thought it was going to be doing. And then once I got over that and knew what was coming the second time around, it blew me away.
I think we're all afraid to comment due to spoilers.
Yeah. I think the one thing that we can just comment on without getting there is performances. Daniel Craig as this, the Southern drawl detective.
Benoit Blanc.
Yeah. Whatever he was trying to be, I loved it. It was the perfect amount of tongue-in-cheek, corny even, but just really gripping performance. And I think he's just having a lot of fun with this. Wasn't it Logan Lucky, where he also had this accent? I think he's just like, sign me up for any role that I can do that.
He is on a kick of being the most opposite of James Bond possible.
I was just going to say that. He's like, God, Bond is so stressful. Get me anything else.
Oh, he absolutely delivers here. I had so much fun with him. And, like, he's cool, too, because he's not the perfect detective. He's no Sherlock Holmes, even though he has a lot of the same mannerisms. The movie doesn't let him solve everything. Like, he bumbles into some stuff. He needs help. He misses things completely.
Yeah.
He's not an idiot, but like he's no Inspector Clouseau from Black Panther kind of thing. But he definitely is not a...
No, Pink Panther.
Pink Panther. What did I say? Black Panther.
Oh. Yes. Andrew and I both went
incorrect.
You gotta, that's awesome. Just
my bad.
Steve Martin, Wakanda forever.
Either way, point stance. He's awesome. He's so much fun.
Yes, very much so. There are times where it flirts with him being like a straight up idiot, but they never commit to that. And it redeems him a lot later because you realize why he was hired in the first place, basically. I won't get into it more than that. This movie's cast is very much full of a lot of people trying to subvert the expectations we have for them. The three main ones I want to mention are Daniel Craig, which you guys already touched on. Chris Evans playing the exact opposite of Captain America, playing the biggest douchebag on the planet. He stole the movie for me a lot. Like, he is so funny and so intensely hateable. Especially there's like one big set piece where the family's just screaming at each other and he is right in the middle of it and twisting the knife a little bit more, and he's perfect.
Just a little bit more. That's an understatement.
There are a couple of scenes where I just look at him and I'm like, you're such a bastard. Like, I loved watching him, and at the same time I was like, shut your damn mouth. Like, there
is not a line he delivers in this movie that he doesn't deliver with a shit-eating grin. Like, there's one point There's one point where it's just as simple where Don Johnson, who is his father, is addressing him, and he just goes, "Father." "Hello, my mother, ladies and gentlemen," he says like a couple seconds later. It's like, wow, can you just not be an ass for like 30 seconds?
Yeah, he just walks in the door and it's just who he is.
Yeah. Oh my God. And then the third person I want to mention is Toni Collette, who, at least Jake and I don't know if Nate ever did this, saw her scream her head off in the performance for The Ages and Hereditary last year. The most intense performance possible. And just having like the most fun possible. It's basically Gwyneth Paltrow.
Yeah. That's spot on. There's a lot of people that are basically caricatures here. There's Michael Shannon, who is like this schemy, shadowy guy who reminds me a lot of his, what is it? The Swamp Monster movie.
The Swamp? Oh, Shape of Water.
Yeah, it reminds me a lot of his performance of Shape of Water. Where
I was like, man, I'm not following. I like that.
Oh man,
the fish sex movie that won Best Picture.
Right.
that one.
There is one person in the movie that I don't want to talk about till we get to spoilers because they have a much different role than I expected, and I think you guys know who I'm referring to, but we're not going to get into that yet. But Jake, anything else on the cast before we start to get into our ratings here?
I was going to agree with that point there. And just to reiterate, I like all the casting choices and how different a lot of them play opposed to what they're used to. Because even, like you said, Toni Collette, and even, what's her name? Jamie Lee Curtis is known as like the original Scream Queen. She is this very uppity, self-made, businesswoman, takes no nonsense. Like, There's a lot of that. And they all pull it off really well, which tells me that Rian Johnson works very well with actors.
Hateable, but so watchable, and they're hateable in different ways. Let's get into our ratings here because we've really hit the limit of what we can talk about without straight up spoiling the movie. Again, if you are joining us for the first time, we rate films on the seat scale. If we love it, if it's a masterpiece, it's a royal throne. If we think it's great, has minor flaws, but nothing crazy, we give it a plush recliner. If we think it's a movie with some pretty glaring flaws, but it's overall good, we give it a wooden seat. The inverse of that, bad movie with decent things in it, we give it a damp lawn chair. And if we think it's just a awful, awful movie, we give it a sleazy outhouse. And then if you should see it into a theater, we will give it a bag of popcorn, little moniker on the side of it. So with that being said, Nate, what would you give Knives Out?
Tough one for me to rate because I really, really liked it. And I do have some minor problems with some things, but that's just it. They're incredibly minor. So I think I'm going all the way on this one. I think I'm giving it a royal throne. I think it knows exactly what movie it wanted to be. I got on the page for what that movie was almost immediately. I think it just stuck it straight to my preferences for this type of movie. Hit all the check boxes. Great twists. Great take on the genre. Great twists on the genre itself. It's got so many layers and so many great characters out of it that I just had a ball. Like, everything bad that I will say about it is so nitpicky that it just feels insincere to give it anything less than a royal throne.
Nice. Well said. There's a part of me that wonders if I will get there upon a second viewing, like you guys seem to say. But right now I'm in a plush recliner territory. It's still really good. I liked it a lot. I think it's a difficult movie not to like. I think most people can sit down and enjoy this to some extent, one way or another. I never quite got to the love it standpoint though. Like, I was engaged, I was interested. I couldn't wait to see what this character would do next, where the story was going to go next, like all really good things, but it just never quite rose to that, fell in love brilliance kind of level for me. But I'm acknowledging that there's definitely a shot. There is a twist in there that is very different and can throw you off guard, so there's potential that happened to me. So we'll see. But for right now, I'm plush recliner with a bag of popcorn. I do think this would be fun with friends, honestly, or fun, with a good audience. And it seems like people are still going to see it because it's making decent money. So
yeah, if you're going to go with people, make sure it's people that want to pay attention. I'm not even talking about the broadness of the mystery. I'm talking about the attention to detail in Rian Johnson's direction and in his comedy. It's very important that you're paying attention because that's what you'll get the maximum experience out of it. And I know that's a little difficult the first time around. I didn't get the full breadth of how great this movie is until I saw it another time. And then I was like, wow, this is working on so many different cylinders. It's got a message, but it's not in your face about it. It's extremely well directed. The score is fantastic. These actors are having the time of their lives. There are a few minor things I would change, and it's nothing that would like push it out of plush recliner ranking. So I'm going to stick with plush recliner. It's teetering. It's very, very close to a royal throne. And I bet if you asked me again in like 5 to 10 years, I might have changed my opinion because I've seen it so many times and grown to love it. But
5 to 10 years. What kind of
not
system
what
is that?
not what I thought you were going to say.
that's what you got to do that sometimes. You need to let the hype of the release not come out. You know what I mean? Like,
all right, we got to get that time travel set up there, then, Jake.
Right. Well, that like a good example for me that the two is that I think The Social Network is a masterpiece, but I thought it was just a really great movie the first time I saw it. But as time has gone on and the culture has changed, like it like this movie might grow up really well with the context of life right now. I mean, we'll see. But for now, plush recliner, I will give it a bag of popcorn. I do think it's fun with an audience, especially as you guys are experiencing the jokes together. So let's talk about some of those jokes and some of those reveals. Please, I'm begging you, if you have not seen Knives Out, go see the movie and then come back and listen to our spoiler section. If you have seen it, which a lot of you, like I said, a lot of you have, let's get into our spoiler section.
Whoa! Oh, spoiler alert.
Spoiler! Spoiler!
Excuse me, spoiler alert.
All right, boys, where to start? I think it's very interesting how this movie is structured, and I think that can be a good jumping off point for anybody that wants to go in any direction here.
Yeah, so I think the biggest reveal happens so early in the movie where we find out pretty quickly how the guy dies. And I don't think anybody expects that going into a whodunit. And like you said earlier, Drew, it's a why done it. And having Ana de Armas's character be the one who's stuck in the middle of all this, I thought was brilliant. She obviously has her own character, which is supposed to be like this naive, nice, very caring person.
Reserved
a little bit, sure. Who's trying to just navigate the chaos that is this family, period. So to have her be the murderer like that is already compelling on one end because it's a complete opposite of not only what the audience thinks, but what Daniel Craig's character thinks, So that in itself is already compelling. But then you add on the layers on top of it where she literally cannot tell lies without throwing up, where she's covering her tracks in real time as the audience and the detectives are finding it. Having all that there just made her such a cool character to follow. And that's just the first act. It blew my mind.
We're far from done with it at that point. But that was what I was talking about with the shock. It took me about probably 20, 30 minutes to recover from like, oh, okay, that's the answer. But it's not the only answer, and it's not the destination that's important. It's the journey to everybody else catching up.
Exactly.
Yeah, I had a similar experience. Like they basically, so like the 3-act structure, they basically bridge Act 1 and Act 2 with you finding out like who did it and like what happened. And I was like, what? Did he really just tell us like 40 minutes in? I'm a little confused.
Even less than
even
that.
earlier.
Yeah.
Even earlier, yeah.
If that,
30.
that's 20, 25, 30 tops, I think.
Yeah, so I had a similar experience to you, but after leaving the theater and thinking about it, I'm like, that was interesting and actually really worked. And then what he decides to do with the movie afterward, like you could tell he had a really good handle on this movie. He knew exactly what he wanted to do.
Yeah, he clearly thinks, and this may even be a little bit of a response and a continuation of what he did with The Last Jedi. He really doesn't think that the reveals are the most important part. You know what I mean? It's how we frame things around the reveals. Because I think about how The Last Jedi operated. It was very much like, okay, I don't care about this, the fan theory. I don't care about this fan theory. And of course, this doesn't have the same level of speculation. And I think that it's probably a little bit tighter with its writing, for sure. If I had one note for him, and this would be like, I don't know why he would listen to me, but
I wouldn't.
Yeah, I wouldn't either, to be honest. If I had one note, I would push the reveal back by about 15 minutes, and I would have the audience learn when Ransom learns when they're eating in the restaurant after the whole will chaos. I was shifted back to then. I think it would have worked a little better if he did that, but I don't think it's like, it certainly doesn't not work how it is now.
I don't know. You guys are treating it like it was a shock that took you out of the movie for a little bit, and I think that was the shock that got me into the movie.
Interesting.
That's when I really like eyebrows up, like, whoa, this movie is doing something new. This is something different. It's like the giant dive right before you begin your roller coaster ride, you know?
You reach the
and
peak.
It's that
and then,
initial jolt that let me know that, like, I'm on the ride. I'm in it now. And
that's a great comparison.
I don't think it ever let up for me. I thought it just did a great job of constantly adding a new but reasonable twist. There's a lot of these types of movies where the plot is so complex and the mastermind who tried to get away with the murder is just absurdly weird. I think this movie is good because, yes, there is a quote-unquote mastermind who's behind it, really, and it's not Ana de Armas, but enough people have their own pieces in the puzzle that it doesn't feel like it's too complex for one person to try to dream up.
I really hope that Lionsgate has people listening to this so they can put that quote on the DVD cover. The roller coaster thing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that a lot.
I'm lobbying for it right now.
Another thing I really like about this movie is there is a lot of layers to the patriarch's murder, Christopher Plummer, but basically anybody could have done it. But most of them never actually would have, and yet you still know that they're all bad people.
Right.
Like, they're all played out in such a way that you know none of them are good people. They're all liars, and all of their versions of the party and their relationship with their father are different than how they believe. And
Yes.
I really loved all their backstories.
Oh,
and
yes,
kind of stuff.
that was the main thing that worked even better the second time around. The warped perception of how naive and like hostilely naive that rich people can be when they're insulated by their money and by their power, and when they have that taken away from them. The Knives Out is not about solving the murder. The Knives Out is when you are threatened and your livelihood is about to be taken away from you. Your very cushy livelihood.
Mm-hmm.
Jake, that's a good point. Any of these people could have done it. It just happened to be the accident, or the perceived accident, obviously, when we figure out exactly what happened, that turned it on its head. Well, like when they show the birthday party scene over and over again, and it's different context, everybody's leaning down, singing happy birthday with the cake at different points, when really, in reality, probably none of them were doing it. The big other one, I think, is when, like, Jamie Lee Curtis is describing them allowing Marta and their family, and they're talking on the couch, and it looks like they're just, like, having a great moment with Marta, but then you just find out that Don Johnson called her over to be part of, like, an immigrant discussion. And it's like,
yeah,
dude.
the whole politics.
Yeah. When that happened, I was like, oh my God, all of you suck. All of you. Even the ones who are nice to her, you're pretty shitty also.
Yeah.
Even the teenage girl who's going to the liberal arts college calls her solely to see if she's going to reverse the contents of the will, and then as soon as she gets that affirmative, hangs up immediately. You know, like,
Right.
that's all she cares about.
Fake cries about it later because she feels bad about it in person. Yeah, those are the people that are the most dangerous. Like, you know, Don Johnson is obviously such a shitbag, and the movie makes that very clear. But, like, Jamie Lee Curtis is rough. Like, she is so entitled, and she is so fake warm and fake inviting. How many times does somebody in this movie say, I wanted you at the funeral, but I got outvoted? Like, at a certain point, you do the math, folks.
Yeah,
Like,
I think they all do.
Yeah,
I think that's the joke.
Or at least half of them said it, which means if you do the math, most of you are lying.
The moment Jamie Lee Curtis feels a shift in power, she's calling Ana de Armas a slut. Like, the moment. Doesn't even stop. And then there's Ransom who says later, Chris Evans goes like, yeah, I mean, like, she says she's a self-made woman, but, like, we all got, like, $1 million to start with. Like, that's not how self-made works. Like...
Yeah.
Yes.
Trump.
Very topical, obviously. And I think this movie I get a little bit of hate online from certain crowds because of how...
You could just say it.
Yeah.
There's a right-wing crowd that is not going to like this movie.
Absolutely.
Plain and simple.
Surprised it hasn't been on Fox News yet.
All right, so if I'm going to go into a little bit more of, like, the deep twists, like, obviously we find out that if there was a quote-unquote mastermind to this story, it's Chris Evans who's kind of playing the character of Marta, the nurse, and everyone else in the house to just cause as much disruption as possible and hope to snag whatever riches he can get out of the deal. His plan,
it's lots of process.
Yeah, his plan is complex, and there are a couple moments where I felt myself not listening to the dialogue because I was still processing what just happened with the exposition the moment before, you know?
Yeah. There is a part where the movie basically tells you to strap on and get ready. When Daniel Craig sits down in that Knives seat and he starts rolling up his sleeves, like, that's the moment where the movie is, like, visually signifying for you, if you're not paying attention yet, pay attention right now.
Like, here we go.
Yes. Right. This is what you've been waiting for.
Yeah, so I think that Knives room reveal scene works 100% for me. I followed the logic. They did like the cutaways the right moment. They got the reaction shots the right way. It felt compelling. It felt like it was kind of satisfying for me because I was tried piecing little bits together and I got some of it as it happened in real time. And I'm like, yes, I got it.
I got like about 40 minutes from the end. It popped in my head that he had something else to do with this because he leaves so early. That it's like...
Yeah, there's always that moment in these types of movies where the character you know the least amount generally has more to hide, and that's why you don't know about them now. I think the only part about his plan that I didn't like in the movie was the other housekeeper character, because I'll be honest, I completely forgot she existed. She found her covered in like the spider,
Francis,
and whatnot,
in the red laundromat area.
Like I thought it was the sister for a minute, just because we hadn't seen that character interact with basically anybody other than the flashback to the party scene. I think we needed to see her like once or twice more just to remind me that she was a player in the game, because it felt out of nowhere the first time around.
Yeah, no, I can agree with that because that's such a very important piece at the end too. That's what kind of confirms the whole thing.
Right, because he's trying to cover... We're talking about Chris Evans, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's trying to cover his tracks, and then I also like that they get him to admit... Because he's right. At first, he's like, so you got a few charges, maybe I get a little sentence here and there, but, you know, you're not going to get me on everything, and then they catch him admitting to murdering or trying to murder the character, right?
Yeah, and it's obviously poetic and obvious that two members of the Help are his downfall. Not really even the detectives. The detectives start to put it together, but Daniel Craig never figures it out if he doesn't find the toxicology report in that secret stash area, or if Ana de Armas doesn't record his call. Those two are directly responsible for his downfall.
Absolutely.
And the whole movie is about how the genuinely good people are the ones that are outsmarting everybody else.
I'll even push back on that, though. Daniel Craig says it at the end. It's not that they were smarter at playing the game. It's the fact that they were not playing the game and they were being genuinely good people, and that's how they got through it. If you're going to be a backstabby bad person, you're not gonna win.
Right, their good deeds carried them the whole way.
That's a very, very good point. This is one of two movies this year that is very anti-hate. Just anti-hate in general. This one and Jojo Rabbit. They don't seem like they have a lot in common, but they really do, because they're very bizarre original ideas from very auteur filmmakers that are very socially conscious, obviously, too, and very Twitter active and so on and so forth. So, I mean, they have a lot in similarities that I didn't put together until after the movie. Like, there's just so much satisfying to see these rich people, like, scratch and claw for what they believe they're righteously owed. Like the scene where Michael Shannon confronts Ana de Armas and tries to like
in the hallway.
Yeah, in the hallway, and is like, we have the resources to make her go away, but we can also protect her with her resources. And then she, like, very innocently and politely, like you were saying, Nate, not playing the game or anything, just goes, wait a minute, I have those resources now. He gave them to me, so thanks, I guess. And he just goes, you look at his face, he's like, oh shit.
That was a great scene, so satisfying to watch, because there was so much tension up to that moment. And then when she just drops that bomb, and I'm like, oh, I have all that power now. Bye. I was not literally, but figuratively jumping up in my seat going like, you go, girl. You get it. That was awesome.
Yas.
Yeah, it's really great how the movie, one, how he utilizes different styles of direction. Like, there are moments where the movie, like, looks like a Wes Anderson movie. Like the scene where they pan back and forth from when she's running along the mud tracks. Like, the way that shot looks like a Wes Anderson movie. But then there are other times where he shoots it like a really intense horror movie. And he's utilizing all these different styles and these styles of comedy. There's a lot of good slapstick. There's a lot of good dialogue. There's a lot of good visual comedy. Like when the dog keeps bringing back the piece of the fence and she keeps throwing it away. Like, it's just a really smart filmmaker firing on all cylinders all across, and a really talented cast doing a really nice job with the script.
And even the use of whoever plays Christopher Plummer's mother, there's a couple good jokes with her. They're like, Harlan's 85th birthday. So like, how old is his mom that she's here? And they're like, nobody knows. Like generally, we have no idea. I laughed out loud at that. I'm like, that's awesome. That's so funny.
Have you eaten, Nana? And like Michael Shannon's screaming at her, and she just can't hear him. And like Jamie Lee Curtis is like, she ate like the whole plate earlier. She ate like the whole sausage plate or something.
And she ends up being a big part in figuring out the murder.
Yeah.
Just by innocently standing around.
Yeah. Chris Evans' character coming back to the will reading just basically to see the chaos.
Yeah, awesome.
You kind of know it's coming because obviously if he's not in the will, why would he come if he knows he's not in it? And it's literally just to see the reaction out of the rest of the family with that shit-eating green that we were talking about. Oh my God, that was gold.
When he
you can eat shit.
Yeah, that definitely shit. Yeah.
Oh my God, it's so funny.
We got to do this more often.
What an awesome character introduction where the dogs just like are all up on him. Fun fact about how they filmed that: Chris Evans had dog treats in his pocket, and that's why they were freaking out on him because nobody can hate Chris Evans like that, especially like an animal of America. You know?
Yeah, that was an awesome scene. That was definitely a standout. I also think the scene where he meets Ana de Armas in the restaurant, at that moment I was like, okay, we're seeing a change of heart for him because he's not in the will, so what does he care? And then he puts the bowl in front of her, and you know he's about to interrogate her, and that was the first moment where I was like, oh, you're a bastard. I don't like you at all. You're an asshole.
Yeah. But it's still compelling to watch because he's a smart asshole, which I think is so key to all of these players. None of them are flat out idiots.
Which I like.
Which, definitely needed. It's great comeuppance to all of them when none of them get what they want at the end. It's satisfying, but it was absolutely work to get there.
Oh man, this might have the best final shot of the year.
I love the ending shot. I love the ending shot.
There were a couple movies with some excellent last scenes this year, and this is definitely one of them. Oh man, I think the car chase in this movie is so good.
Oh my God.
Yeah,
that was gold.
Yes.
This is the stupidest car chase ever.
Yeah.
I honestly, I could end it there. This movie just had it all. Had the great twist. It was intelligent. It had something to say.
Humor.
And it was funny as all hell to balance it all out. It was like the perfect meal. Had a little bit of everything.
Yeah. We could go on and on. Made me hungry for donuts too, by the way. Very hungry for donuts.
Oh. I love that model.
that whole thing and the way they return to it too. It's so good. We could just go on and on about our favorite parts, but I think it's time we start to wrap up here a little bit. Jake, why don't you give your final thoughts on Knives Out?
Yeah, to ditto what you guys were saying, it's funny to think that I'm the low man because it sounds like I'm the low man because I liked it a lot. It's extremely well written. There's like a dozen different layers to this. I was gonna say I wish Lakeith Stanfield had a little bit more screen time. He's the cop that kind of is an association with Daniel Craig a little bit throughout the movie. And he's a very good actor, and he's up and coming, and I would have liked to see him get a little more screen time because I like him, but every character is good, gets good use of their script. I don't even think there is a generic character. Like even the kid.
He's the kid of Michael Shannon, played by Jaden Martell.
He probably only has a line or two, but his character is still well written because he gets digs. He has a relatively interesting backstory. You can peg him for who he is.
Oh, he calls Marta something really racist at one point.
Well, they're all kind of racist to her because they all say that they're coming from a different country, right? They call her
Brazil, Paraguay,
Paraguayan, yeah.
Right. I don't remember what he says, but overall, like the story's very well written. The characters are really well written. Everybody chews up the performances. Like you can tell Rian Johnson's he's going to be huge. I mean, if he's not already, if he's not considered a huge director, he's going to be.
He directed one of the biggest movies of all time. Even if I didn't like it, Star Wars is still unique.
He still only has so many movies under his belt. Like, I wouldn't say he's a household name yet. But I can't wait to see what he does.
Like, people know who he is infamously. Whether that's right or not is a whole nother discussion. But anyway, Nate, final thoughts.
I won't rave about this movie too much longer, other than the fact that I really loved it. I loved all these characters. A minor complaint is that I wish we saw more of the supporting characters during the second act. Like, there's a long bit where it's literally just Ana de Parmas and Chris Evans running around for a little bit where you don't see a lot of the supporting cast. But that is, again, a minor nitpick in a very, very good movie. Definitely a royal throne for me. And I would love to see more movies like this. Take a genre, take an idea, flip it around, turn it inside out a couple times, and wrap it all up in this pretty package, great acting, and an awesome story. And you get a Knives Out. Let's have more Knives Outs.
Put the knives away in church, but Knives Out everywhere else.
Sure.
I was very concerned with how people were going to react to this because a lot of people don't like when their expectations are subverted too much. People don't like when their expectations are subverted and it's something that doesn't make sense to them, I guess, is what I've learned from this. Because Johnson is so consistent with everything he does in his storytelling in this film specifically that there are people like raving about it, like just normal average people. And I love that. I love that we're getting people seeing adult filmmaking, adult genre original filmmaking, and not just going out to franchise and stuff like that. I'm not trying to be like anti-franchise guy, but you know what I mean? Like, it's good that movies like this are doing well is basically what I'm trying to say.
Right.
Because
thank God.
It's a really good one of these movies too. Like I said, there's just so much about the details of this film. It's so clever. It's so smart. It's way smarter than anything I could have ever thought of. Down to the most basic details. It is such an attack on the wealthy. That's so fun. All the way down to the guy who reads the will doesn't know anything that he's reading, so his like assistant has to point at things for him to make sure he's reading stuff right. That just shows how people in power often are made and built by the people underneath them. And this movie is a celebration of that, but a really fun classic throwback to the murder mystery genre as well. If you haven't seen it already, why are you listening right now? But if you have seen it, see it again, because I think it holds up and it does even better on the second time around. That will do it for our Knives Out review and for this edition of the Middle Seats podcast. Before we go, Nate Lungarini, where can they find us on the internet?
Alrighty, here's how you can get in touch with us. Please like, comment, and subscribe to our YouTube channel, The Middle Seats. You can also listen to us on the go on all your podcast platforms, including SoundCloud, Stitcher, iTunes, and Spotify. For questions, comments, and updates on the show, keep an eye on our Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, all at The Middle Seats. And if you like what you hear and you want to see more content, let us know and spread the word.
Next time on the main Middle Seats podcast, it will be that time. We will be talking about Star Wars, The Rise of Skywalker. Should be a fun one, obviously. Might take up the whole podcast. We'll have to decide. But either way, we're very excited for that. If you haven't been following 30 Days of Star Wars, where we go through and review the movies in the Skywalker saga leading up to this point, please check that out. Those are episodes we've been putting out, probably 1 or 2 a week, roughly. So by the time you listen to this, most of them should be out. It's a good way to get yourself ready for the big final Star Wars experience. That will do it for tonight's episode. For Nate Lungarini and Jay Kensler, I'm Andrew Oj. Keep that seat warm, everyone. We'll be back soon.